Hey there, everyone, and thanks for tuning in to another edition of the BIS Podcast. Josh Green here and Drew Whittington will be joining us here in just a little bit. Now, on this week's podcast, you will actually be hearing part one of our topic, Interesting Texas History, with the legendary Sterling Harris. Now, we'll be doing a part two a little bit later down the trail, as Sterling might say, but believe me, once you start listening, you're not going to want to tune anything out. So today we'll be hearing Sterling describe about where he grew up and his time working at the General Land Office. So sit back, tune in, and enjoy. All right, welcome into another edition of the BIS Podcast, broadcasting live on the Marvin Network. Josh Green and Drew Whittington back on with you. Drew, we keep rolling along. We're doing something right and a great time and a great way to get things started off here on this podcast today because, Drew, we have a very important guest today. All our guests are important, but this one is going to be a top one.
I have heard that, as far as top 10 Texans ever in the state of Texas, this one that we're going to interview today is number 0.05. He is so high. He's not even the first. He's above number one.
Yeah, you can't even.
That's how amazing he is.
You can't even get close. You can't make it 2, 3, 4, 5. It is so close to one that there might not be another one around it. To be honest with you, Drew.
That's what I'm saying. I actually saw a statue of this guy. Like that Sam Houston statue that's 70 feet tall. This guy, I've seen a statue of him, and it's called just the Cowboy. That's it. And they call him WT, West Texas. So who is it today? Who is it today?
Drew, we have none other than BIS's own Sterling Harris on with us today on the podcast. And let me tell you, folks, this man could do a podcast just by himself. He doesn't even need me and Drew. This guy could do this and talk forever, and this would be the most one of the interesting things you could ever listen to. Now, our topic on today's podcast, Drew, is interesting Texas history. And, Sterling's got some pretty good things to let us know here. And I'm a big history nerd. I don't know about you, Drew. I know you're just probably a regular nerd, but I think this is going to be one of the best podcasts you're going to listen to that we've done here so far.
That's true. Well, Sterling, good to have you, sir.
You bet. Great to be here, guys. Thank y'all. That's quite an introduction.
Yeah, but now you got to live up to it.
Small town Texan guy.
Yeah.
Small town Texan,
Sterling,
but with a big ego.
Sterling, tell me, give everybody who's listening a quick overview of where you grew up and your time at the General Land Office.
Okay. Well, I grew up in the Hill Country in Wimberley, Texas. And, I come from an old family there that's been there since 1845. So, grew up in a ranching family, kind of, it was a really fun rural life to be able to grow up in a great environment like that. Had a lot of, wonderful family members around me that told me stories that really, kind of got my interest in history.
And, that is awesome.
Yeah. Once I grew up there, of course, and graduated from Sul Ross at Far West Texas, small university. And, had worked in Midland, Texas for Clayton Williams. Then I got an opportunity to come back to Austin and work for the General Land Office. So There was a great start to really, if you're not interested in history, if you go to work, if you're there at the General Land Office, you will learn to love history. I was exposed to all kinds of different things. Of course, the archives and records has all the original land grants. And, from there, I got to work with those. We're trying to do the mapping for the Texas General Land Office, for oil and gas and for our different areas of the state, oil spill response, different things like that. But it was a lot of working with the old documents, the old map, working with the surveyors there. Getting to read those documents every day is so very interesting. It's an agency with elected officials. I served under 4 different land commissioners, and it was a great. You meet so many cool people that come in, that are interested, in the GLO in our archives. So that group that was in our archives and records, bunch, we got to meet regularly and talk about how we wanted to protect these historical documents. So that was a big thing that I had a big focus on, trying to protect those documents in our archives and records. But at the same time, it was fun to read them. The GLO took over the Alamo, so we got to pull those records out. So I got to actually put my hands close to the letter from William B. Travis at the Alamo. So getting to see stuff like that was just amazing, tremendous, place to be able to have access to that stuff, and trying to map everything out too was a lot of fun. It was one of the things I wanted to do with our GIS system was to actually access. We scanned all these original documents and maps and rolled sketches, working sketches, and we figured out, we created an index where you could actually query and see those documents and where they were located in different parts of the state that covered the land surveys and land grid. But anyway, that's part of today's podcast. Is it's really important. If you want to learn about history, there's some great sources. And I would stress being able to go to archives and records, at the General Land Office and view some of those. And you can, make appointments to go see them, and, a great group of people to work with.
That's awesome.
But with all that said about the GLO, during that time, I really got familiar with the state, all the different counties and everything. So when I came to work for BIS, it was like, man, I know where that county is. I know where these places are.
Yeah.
I've seen this many times. And so during my travels with BIS, I was just, I'm so, really gung-ho about, history. So I would stop at these historical markers across the state. And, of course, I got to work right next door at the Stephen F. Austin building where the GLO is housed, to the Historical Commission. And from there, I made some friends there, and they were working in GIS. So they had created, their goal was to create a GIS map that represented all the historical sites in Texas.
Wow.
Where all these plaques were located. And so I was going to share my screen if I can do that.
Yeah, go ahead. This is special, Drew. I know we do usually audio only, but Sterling's got some stuff he wants to show us. I think everyone was going to like to see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can y'all see my screen now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we can.
Okay. I was going to show you right here. This is the Texas Historical Commission Historic Sites and Atlas. And what this is basically it shows where all these different plaques or these historical markers are located. And I'm kind of panning around up here. I'm in the Panhandle. So if you click on one of these sites, you can get details about what's there. And I had stopped by this site when I was up there, traveling to some of the GLO clients up there. This is where the Battle of Adobe Walls was located. But anyway, each one of these, as you click on them, it pulls up information about what's on that plaque. And and this is really cool. You get to read about, what particular, this one was Adobe Walls. This is the fight, with Kit Carson's troops from the United States, with Comanche and Kiowa Indians up there. So that was one of the battles where they, held off, the Indians with their long range rifles, and, it was quite a battle. So what a beautiful area. This doesn't do it justice, just panning around looking at a map, but driving up there in that grassland and looking across the prairies and driving up on that and being able to see that, you just get a tremendous feeling for what it's like. What would this be like in the 1880s, And of course, these people live on the frontier up here in the Texas Panhandle. This was all, the Indians actually controlled this area. It was a very contested area.
That's amazing.
Yes, sir. This is the Paladura Canyon. This was another battle here, so you can get details on that. And but it's a, and I don't know if you guys been to the Paladura Canyon, but what a beautiful place. So if you ever have a chance to go up there, this is really worthwhile. This is just east of Canyon, Texas, here below Amarillo. But
that is amazing.
That's awesome. I will attest. I have been to the Paladura Canyon, and it is amazing. If anyone has a chance you've never been, you need to go see it.
Yes, right. Yes. And I didn't even know this was out here. I didn't even know this was out here. This is amazing. I mean, I knew about the Paladura Canyon, but I did not know about the historical markers.
Well, up here too is they have a play in the summer that does Texas history. And if you ever get a chance to go to that, it's wonderful. I've been to that play, and it really depicts Texas history in the Panhandle. And it's a beautiful sight. It's amazing. The kids from West Texas A&M are like the actors. So they act out different history events in the Panhandle. So what a great place to go. I'm going to pan down here to the Texas border, to the Trans-Pecos. Since I got to go to, graduate from Sul Ross and Alpine. So I got to be in the Big Bend area, and I really fell in love with it too, the sights and stuff. But, there was a lot of battles here too, with raids from Mexico. There was just different, things that were going on during the time, just turbulence, on the border. The Texas Rangers were in charge of, protecting the border down here, and they got into some, really, really difficult situations. And so, there's one here that describes one of their battles here just west of Marfa. So, but it, what a rugged area. You can't imagine riding horseback across this rough country and just seeing what it's like to be there.
That is so true.
It's unbelievable, but we've got to hand it to the folks that came to Texas, the Chianos, and other immigrants from different parts of the United States. What they had to deal with. They were living on the edge up here, across Texas. And of course, I live in Llano County, and it's just it's a beautiful area, no doubt, hill country. But there was definitely a lot of history here. And of course, in this area, this is Mason, Fredericksburg, Llano. And then here in Llano, like I said, this is the, has beautiful, granite outcrops. It's the Llano Dome. Geographically, it's the geology is wonderful here. If you love geology, what a great place to come.
That will conclude part 1 of our topic of interesting Texas history with Sterling Harris. Tune in down the road as we'll have part 2 of mine and Drew's discussion with Sterling as he tells us about his great-grandfather and the impact he made. Once again, we thank you for tuning in to this edition of the BIS Podcast. For myself, Josh Green, Drew Whittington, and also Sterling Harris, we say thank you, and until next time, so long and goodbye.